fear through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Chasing the Pennant podcast, the season preview, as we're now less than 48 hours away from the opening pitch of the 2021 season. Philadelphia Phillies baseball, Major League Baseball, just about upon us. I'm your host tonight, Rob, joined tonight by the two Joes, Biscuit and Borek. How you doing, Biscuit?
I'm doing swell, Rob. You said it, man, and you got me hype. Baseball, less than 2 days away now, 3 p.m. Thursday afternoon. I can't wait to have a nice cold beer in my hand watching my Phils. Tis the season. The most joyous time of year, some may say, is right now in early spring. So I'm very excited.
Absolutely. What's the beer of choice for you, by the way?
Oh, my gosh. Back to my college days, I always drank Bud Light, so naturally, I still drink Bud Light.
Fair enough.
Original.
And we're also joined by Borek. How you doing, Borek?
Doing well. I would agree with Biscuit. This is the most joyous time of the year for two reasons. For me and Rob, it's the crunch time, usually more so, but this year even so still, of the hockey season and then the start of a baseball season. So being my two main sports, it's always the most perfect time of the year. So excited to talk some Phillies baseball, and I think we'll definitely be talking about some of the pitchers that impressed us beyond what we might have even thought in spring training.
Yeah, without a doubt, we have a lot to talk about. Being the season preview episode, it's all going to be about predictions and expectations and, whether or not we think that they can make the playoffs and just putting our bold takes out there and seeing how much of it is right and how much of it is wrong at the end of the season. For me, it's usually like 90% wrong. I'm just going to lead off with that right now.
That's the joke I always make. It's fun to see how wrong we are at the end of the season. And then if you're right, you're just like, all right, let's go. I'm right for once.
I think it was 2 seasons ago. It was Bryce's first season. I predicted they would win 95 games that year. I was only off by 14.
Yeah,
Only
that's
14.
close enough.
You know what, Rob? I too predicted like a 95-win Phillies team for 2019, so no shame in that game, man. We thought they were going to be legit. Boy, were we wrong, but
right.
We're
Yeah, that was a bad look that year. It started off looking like they could win 90 plus games, and then just kind of came crashing down that season, unfortunately. But anyway, let's get to it. We've got the season just about upon us, and we've got our takes. So, guys, and Borek, I'll start with you. What do you think is your boldest take about the Philadelphia Phillies going into the 2021 season?
I'm not sure how bold this is, minus the fact that he's coming off of an injury, but just because some people in fan groups on Facebook pissed me off still doubting him, I feel like I'll come out and say it. I feel like Eflin will establish himself as a third starter. He looked good in the 3 games. He obviously would have got more games in spring training if it wasn't for his bothersome injury. But he had a .82 ERA and a 1 WHIP with 10 strikeouts in 11 innings, so pretty much a strikeout per inning in spring training. And I understand it's spring training, but we've seen great stuff from this guy in season when not pitching with a smacked-ass pitch coach. Now that you have people that actually let you do what you're supposed to do and not tell a sinker ball pitcher, oh, let's throw it up and in all the time. It's like, no, dumbass. He's a sinker ball pitcher. Let him do what he's supposed to do. And then he did great that season when he went back to just saying, I'm doing my own thing. Now that he was allowed to do his own thing, we saw good stuff from him last year with Girardi in his first season. I think now with Cotham as a pitching coach, I honestly really like everything that they were saying about this kid in the preseason. We've already seen a lot of guys perform well in spring training. Eflin's a guy I think is going to emerge as a third starter full-heartedly this season.
You know, you said that people argue that he hasn't established himself as a guy who's capable of being a third starter. And I'm looking at over the past 3 seasons, 2018, 2019, the abbreviated year last year, he's consistently been in the high 3s to low 4s ERA-wise. He's a guy who can put together solid outings. You know, he's going to consistently give you 6-ish, 7-ish innings. He can throw a complete game in every once in a while. I think he's long since established himself as a guy who's capable of being a third starter. So that's my take on that. I agree that he can be that guy. So I'm excited to see what he's able to give them this year.
Yeah, I just don't like how some podcasts I listen to with different people I listen to and some of the fan groups I'm at on Facebook are all like, well, Eflin's our third starter, and then we have Anderson and Moore. So how is it? I believe in Nola and Wheeler, and I'm like, wait a minute, Zach Eflin already showed in his first couple years he was a great fifth starter. Now he's showing he can be a very good third starter because that's just what it is. It's not like he was a top prospect. He's a guy that you knew was becoming an emerging prospect when you traded for him. So now he's starting to show what you banked on, and that's great to see.
Right.
I think a big thing too is people, and this was actually brought up on other podcasts. You know, people have this perception that you need to have an ace at your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots in the rotation. No team is really built like that in Major League Baseball. Obviously, there's a few rotations that are very, in depth and stellar, but for what Eflin's been throughout his entire career, you said at Borek, he's been consistent. He's been about a 4 or 5 starter, and he does look like he's ready to take that step forward. I'm going to be transparent. I'm not very willing to say right now what that step forward is going to be and if it's going to be a significant step forward. I still think he'll be about, a solid number 3, number 4 guy, but going anything beyond that, I'm still hesitant to make that leap just yet. But I do see the potential. I do see the growth there, and I'm really excited to see what he can do this season.
Yeah, as am I. I do understand the skepticism. I do understand, having some reservations about it, just given that his track record isn't too long, but I'm going off of what he's done and what I've seen with the eye test pretty much over the past 3 seasons. And yes, there have been some hiccups along the way and some little bit of injury issues here and there, but I think by and large he's proven to be that consistent guy who can, be kind of a cog in the middle of the rotation. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
One thing I was going to ask you two just on Eflin is because of the injury, like we've seen people that have got affected by injuries on all of our major teams in the city. Do you think since he's been banged up a bit, that's more why people are concerned, some of the people that are, if he could take that next leap? Or it's more about his performance? Because I feel like if it's performance-based, you're going to have to explain that because he's been showing leaps in performance. But if it's injury-based because of previous guys on the Phillies and other teams, I can get with that more, but I still don't agree with it. Biscuit, go ahead.
I don't think it's injury based. I think it's more performance based, if anything. He's had stretches where he's missed time because of injuries, but nothing very prominent to where you think that an injury is the reason he's having a setback or that's something holding him back. Look, I just don't think he's, pitched up to what you'd expect from like a number 1 or number 2. He's pitched fine for a number 3 or worse. Since 2018, I thought Eflin's been fine in the rotation for what he's produced. Like I said, I just think people expect him to be something that he hasn't been in his career. And I think that he's getting this treatment right now that he's looking to take this step forward, which I hope he does. But I think people are going to really expect too much of what he can do and expect him to be more of a number 1 than a number 2 or number 3. And that's all he really needs to be. You have Nola, you have Wheeler. You don't need him to be anything else. But I don't think his injury history is anything that's what's concerning people or what's, creating doubters on the Zach Eflin train.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. And granted, this is Philadelphia. We're always concerned about injuries to everybody to some extent. But yeah, I agree with Biscuit in this regard that if there are concerns, it's not due to injuries. It's just due to, have lack of a significant track record of success.
That makes sense. I was just curious what you thought. And also, I wish people saw us on this podcast because Biscuit's Hawaiian shirt, rocking the Hawaiian shirt,
As I said
people would
before we
probably like
began
that
recording,
one.
that's a really nice shirt there.
Guys, it's on Fanatics. Go grab it. I think I look fresh in it. I love it.
Biscuit, you are styling over there, sir.
Aw, shucks, Rob. Aw, shucks.
The Fresh Prince of CTP.
Anyway, Biscuit, what's your bold take for the 2021 Philadelphia Phillies season?
Well, when I was looking for my bold take, I looked no further than the 2020 offense, and I was looking up and down that lineup, and, I do think the consistent offensive production will continue this season. I think the lineup's good enough to compete and whatnot, but somebody who I thought was going to be good when he, came to the team prior to the 2020 season, but really did kind of exceed my expectations offensively, Didi Gregorius. And I saw that in spring training again this year. I just like how he's such a good, consistent middle of the lineup bat. I think he complements the lineup so perfectly in like the 5 or 6 spot. And really my bold predictions with Didi Gregorius, I think he's going to hit about 30 home runs. I think he hit almost 30. I think he hit like 27 in 2018, maybe 2017, but he definitely has the power to do it, especially with Citizens Bank Park being, a hitter-friendly park and whatnot. And like I said, I just think he's going to get a chance to see a lot of, pitches with guys on base. He's going to see, with guys like Harper or Bone batting in front of him. There's going to be runners there, and I think he's just going to get pitches to mash, really.
Yeah, I liked a lot of what I saw from Didi last year, and I have to agree with you. His swing looked a lot better than it did at the injury-riddled end of his tenure with the Yankees. And, a lot of people would say, he wasn't putting up those home run totals at Yankee Stadium, which is basically heaven for left-handed hitters. But I liked what he saw in the shortened season last season, and I think that if he continues on that pace this year, especially playing at Citizens Bank Park, which is friendly to left-handed hitters, yeah, I think he could push 30 homers. I have him finishing just short. I think I had him, I forget what I said last time. I said like 25 or something like that.
Yeah, I think we all had it around in like the mid-20s.
I think we all had around 25. I think Rob and I were pretty much the same for Didi. So if he pushes 30, I love the way that he plays the game on both ends because he was probably our most consistent and best defensive infielder last year as well. Is actually producing pretty well at the plate. And I could see him hitting 30 in his best season, but I definitely see 25 to 30. So I love that hot take by Biscuit because Didi, since acquiring him, has been one of my favorite players in the team. And I think it was just actually one of the only smart acquisitions before he was fired Glenn Tack ever made in his existence, other than Harper, which was more Middleton. Because he had the relationship with Girardi, and it's always good to bring in somebody that has that relationship with the manager you're bringing in. So I think he's important in the locker room and important on the field. So I love that take by Biscuit for sure.
Hey, don't forget my guy JT. That's a Clintac acquisition as well. But yeah, I agree.
True. Yeah, it's actually a trade he was able to make, even more surprising.
And a trade in which he gave up a metric shit ton in the form of Sixto
the next Pedro, maybe.
And Jorge Alfaro.
Hey, did you guys see he's starting the season in AAA?
Yes, I did, and that's really shocked to me.
I was shocked. It doesn't make like complete, like it doesn't sound like completely nonsensical, but I was shocked.
The guy was lights out though when he came up last year. So that's really surprising. I thought he would have been their opening day starter, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Well, they have a pretty good rotation.
I didn't see what he was doing in spring training though, so I don't have that to go off of.
I'm sure he'll be back sooner rather than later.
He'll be back. He'll be back throwing no hitters against the Phillies. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Anyway, so 2 good bold takes so far, and my bold take is He's only done this once so far in his career. Bryce Harper will break the 40 home run mark this season. His career high 42 back in 2015 with the Nationals. That's the only time he's broken 40. He's broken 30 each of the last two full seasons, being 18 and 19 with 34 and 35 respectively. I think that he crosses 40 this year. I think that he could even potentially push 50. I know I said on the last show that I probably expect like high 30s. I'm a little bit more confident now. I saw the nice swing that he had on the home run, I think yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that he could be somewhere in the ballpark, like 42, 43, somewhere around there. So yeah, Bryce Harper 40 plus home runs is my bold take for the season.
I mean, it's certainly possible. He's done it before. Certainly has the power to do it. He was kind of on that track last season before his back started acting up, and it was a shortened season, so he would never have gotten the chance anyway. But it's certainly possible. My heart's still telling me he's going to end up somewhere in the mid to high 30s. Like, I think he would have to be having like an MVP caliber like season to hit the 40 plateau. But Bryce is a superstar. Whether you think so or not, the guy is, one of the greatest talents in professional baseball today. So he definitely has the ability to do so. I would say it's certainly more likely that he gets closer to 40 home runs than he's closer to hitting about, 25 to 30. So I'm in on that take.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Harper's swing
Borek.
looks sweeter than a pie, basically, I guess is an analogy I use since I can't think of anything smarter right now. Did like 5 podcasts today, so bear with me. But
you are
he's looked
Mr.
really
Podcast.
good. Yeah, he's looked really good this spring. I mean, you don't hit 343 and 35 at bats by accident. So, I think I definitely will go with that take. His swing looked good early. He has that dad power going for him now. Big time. So I think that's just going to continue, and maybe he'll even be in the MVP race this year as a second bold take that I'll throw in here a little bit.
I would love to see
if he hits
him
over
be the MVP
40
race, but let's start off with an All-Star game appearance, though. It'll be nice to get that first All-Star game appearance
true.
as a Philly out
but
of
if
the
he
way.
hits over 40 like you predicted, I feel like he would have to probably be somewhere near being mentioned in the MVP race because that's going to be one of his best seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And you know what? If the Phillies are going to make a push for the playoffs, then I think they need, if not all of what we just predicted there to happen, at least, a good portion of it. I think they're going to need good performances, obviously, from Bryce and Didi, and having a nice season from Zach Eflin as well would help out a lot. But, and Biscuit, we'll start with you on this. What are your thoughts on the Phillies' chances of making the postseason this year? I know they play in a very tough division, maybe one of the toughest divisions in baseball, but given the added wild card, they do have an extra opportunity to make it. So, or the having the 2 wild cards. I'm sorry, that's not a new thing, but having the 2 wild cards, an extra opportunity to make it into the postseason. What's your take on that?
Ask me again in June or July, Rob. It's just so hard to tell. You look at this roster, and I say this. This is the most complete this team has looked in recent memory. Since 2011, this is the best team that's been put together. And that's the bottom line. It's the truth. But does this team compete with a revamped Mets, an already well-established Braves who are coming off a 3rd straight division win, we're a game away from winning or going to the World Series? I just don't know if it makes them better than them. And the Nationals, look, you could say all you want that they're the 4th place team, that, they're a bunch of aging stars and whatnot. They don't have enough to win, but they're only a season away from winning a World Series, and you can't just discredit that. They still have some punch there, whether the talent is aging or not. So look, I'll tell you this much. It's certainly going to be very difficult, and you said it, man. Everything needs to break their way. All of our bold takes need to come true. So if you needed to ask me right now, I'm going to be completely transparent. I'm going to say no. I don't think the Phillies are going to make the playoffs this year. I do think they'll probably end up with at least a 500 record, maybe 82 and 80, 83-79, 84 wins. I think somewhere in the low 80s is probably where I'd say they'd end up, but it will come short of missing the postseason.
So no playoffs for you.
And I hate saying that. I hate saying that out loud.
Well, hey, it's better than saying that they will make the playoffs and then jinxing them and they don't make it.
Yeah.
As
like we did in
will
2019.
Exactly. Borek, what's your take?
I'm with Biscuit, actually, pretty much par for par, because that's what I said on a different podcast I was on. We predicted every division, and I had us third, just simply because the Nationals have had injuries. So if Strauss gets injured again, Corbin has not, who's been one of my favorite pitchers since he broke into the league, has not impressed me one bit since going to DC. So if that continues, I feel like they don't have as much rotational depth if those two things continue as we think. So I put them as fourth. So having us at third, I don't think would put us in a wild card spot, but it will probably put us around 500 or maybe a game or two above. So I'm pretty much with Biscuit. What I want to see this season is guys we want to see come into their own to establish for the team moving forward, because this is a year, I think, of kind of getting into our own, kind of like 07 was, or 06 going into 07. Then you had 07, which we made it, but we only made it because of a late run. We saw guys before that late run coming into their own, and then that's what really took us off when other guys really took off at the same time as those guys. So if that happens, I could see us making it. But I think the most important thing is have somebody like a Hazley or a Moniak establish themselves as the center fielder, because you need a steady center fielder. Or a Quinn, I just don't think it's good. I feel like it's more likely to be one of the other two, because you're going to need someone steady there. Continue to have Bohm be the great goat that we hope he's going to develop into. Have Reese kind of be the Reese we all think he can be and not struggle really and be more consistent. If all those things happen and Eflin pitches like I predicted in my bold take, then we're good and we're moving in the right direction. That's what I see this season as. And I would rather go into it thinking that to be overly impressed rather than like the Flyers. I am with the Flyers right now, crying myself to sleep at night because I thought we were going to make the postseason, and now we freaking suck. So I would rather go in with this mindset and then be like, holy shit, we're actually winning. Oh my God, we might make it. Like, that would be much better than going in with it thinking it and having two teams that I'm very disappointed in. So that's what I think. That's my take on it.
See, I think the disparity, and you mentioned the 2016 kind of being similar, and yeah, in a way I could see it. I think the disparity to me is that 06 team, I mean, yes, J-Roll was an established player at that point. Utley was kind of an established player at that point, and Howard, although he was coming off, or that was his MVP season, he was coming off the Rookie of the Year, he was still kind of on his way up as a major league player. That was a younger team that was a little bit less established. The talent on this year's team is more established. You got guys like Bryce, like Didi, like JT, like Aaron Nola, Gene Segura, guys who we know what they are at the major league level. Whereas that 06 team, I think, was more up and coming talent, although better talent, but a little bit more up and coming. So I think personally the fact that this year's team is a little bit more established in that regard, I think that's an upper hand for them. And I do think that they're going to be a playoff team. I don't think that they're going to win the division. I think that'll be Atlanta. Atlanta's a very good team. I think that the Phillies will sneak in with one of the two wild card spots. I could see them finishing somewhere around 86, 87 wins, somewhere around there. The biggest thing to me is I have confidence in their ability to get off to a hot start. I want to see them be able to finish, because that's what's kind of brought them down, in 2018, 2019, and then last year is not being able to finish the regular season on a high note. I want to see them, if they can get hot or at least play decent baseball in September and kind of, at least tread water there, I think they will be a playoff team.
I'll say this, Rob. If they are a playoff team, I think you're going to see them go on a late season run because I think their schedule is really tough at first. So I don't see them going on much of a run at first, especially I think they play their first 4 series Braves, Mets, Braves, Mets. God, if we'll be lucky if we're playing 500 ball through that, especially if the Mets are cracked up to what people make them sound like they're going to be. A lot of people are high on this Mets team. I think the Mets team could be either very good or kind of what the 2019 Phillies were in mediocre, in the sense that they were kind of hyped up because they got their big star, new ownership, a lot of attention on them. They added a lot of good players, brought in Carlos Carrasco, obviously Lindor. So the talent's obviously there, but it kind of gives me that 2019 feel where they haven't really done it yet. And everyone's expecting them to do so much that it might not go as planned. And that could be the case. It could not be the case. But I think getting a lot of games against the division out of the way early is really just helpful for this team because, you don't know how they're going to play against the Mets, Braves, and Nationals. And, the Marlins are going to kick our ass. So,
of course.
Yeah.
You want to get those division games out of the way. And hopefully you're facing some, subpar teams down the stretch and can get on that, 10-game win streak or so to sneak right in. Look, it's possible, man. It's baseball. Anything could happen. Like I said, the team overall looks solid, but I just don't know if it's enough, and that's really holding me back from making this decision. But if you don't mind, I want to ask you both a question because I was sitting on this earlier today at work, and I didn't know really where to go with this. But let's say no playoffs this year. You're in year 4 of Bryce's contract at that point. The team's not getting any younger. You don't have anything stellar really coming up the pipeline that, will be a major player in this team. You have some complementary pieces, of course, but I'm getting to the point where if they don't produce soon and don't make it soon, you might as well just start tearing this thing down and start from scratch. Do you guys think that's fair to say? I don't know if I'm just being, impatient or whatnot, but I just feel like we have such a top-heavy roster and nothing really coming up the tube to where no matter what happens, this core isn't just going to cut it. Is that fair to say? Do you think?
I think it's fair to think that way. My response though is that if we know anything about Dave Dombrowski, he's not exactly a tear it down type of guy. He's a guy who fix it by spending more. So I don't think that Dombrowski would go the route of tearing it down, if that answers your question.
I think, and you bring up a good point, Rob. I think I should have looked no further than Dave Dombrowski. I think if that's the plan you go, and you probably don't hire Dave, but I really don't know what you continue to do from here. You really, unless you want to go over the luxury tax, you really can't keep shelling out money to just continue to make this roster so top heavy and more expensive at the top when, you're not having anything come up the farm system. Guys like Scott Kingery, who are supposed to be major contributors for this team, are being demoted after their 3rd season. It's just not a good look right now. And you wonder what's going to happen.
I think for this team, though, Biscuit, I think you want to tear it down because we saw you saw Hazley when he came in look good. Moniak kind of got underplayed. I feel like he's becoming the new Hazley, where Girardi just refused to play Hazley last year, refused to play Moniak now in spring training.
I think Moniak
and he hit over 300. He needed some time, but who gives a shit because he was hitting over 300 and Odubel Herrera sucks. But anyway, moving forward. We can move past the fact that Odubel Herrera sucks. But the Phillies, I think you have somebody, and I think you just need those role guys because we saw our bullpen sucked and blew a lot of games last year, and some guys not getting hits in pivotal moments that we subbed in for guys sucked because we had no bench. So if you have guys like the Casey Martins of the world you drafted, the Nick Matons, who Girardi talked up a lot in those 4th-inning interviews he did in spring training, eventually become those bench cats like a Brock Holt at least, that or a Zobrist, one of them, that really helps your bench. So I think if the Phillies guys trend in the right direction, the Bohms, the Hoskins of the world, Bryce obviously does what Rob wants. Kutch, I think, is going to have a great bounce-back year. He seemed to be moving on his feet better in camp this year than he did last year, now coming back the second season from the surgery. So I feel like if things move in the right direction, you're going to be good. But I think in order for this team to make the playoffs, a big thing they're going to need, too, is at some point Spencer Howard to play a pretty good part in that as well, and not just the pitchers that are already aforementioned and made the roster, whether that's from a reliever perspective or a starter perspective, if an Anderson or Moore struggle. I feel like he's going to need to make a part in it because Abel's a guy I'm really high on, but he's still a little ways away.
That's fair. That's a fair take there. Personally, I'm a little bit concerned actually about Spencer Howard. I think that he's kind of already proven himself. Maybe not proven, but he's kind of already shown signs of not quite being up to what we all thought he was going to be. And hopefully some time down in the minors this year, he'll have a chance to kind of hone his craft a little bit, kind of find that out pitch so he doesn't turn into Vince Velasquez at the major league level. So
I'm not too concerned with Spencer Howard. I think, I honestly like the fact that they're going to kind of use him in a hybrid, use him at a starter when they need to, but keep him in the bullpen for the most part when they do bring him up. Obviously they're really concerned about his innings. They don't want him pitching that deep in the ball games yet, nor do they want him pitching probably more than around 100 innings this season. I would think maybe like 120 if that. So they're going to keep his innings limited. But I think when he does come up out of the bullpen, I think that could be a really sneaky weapon to use, especially if he has to go for 2 innings or maybe 3 innings. I think that could be a good little perk to have. So I'm actually a little excited for Spencer Howard to come up. I think when he comes up, that could be the time this team really puts it all together, and he could be one of those, call him up and just plays a major role out of the bullpen. I could see that happening. So I'm not, what that means for his future as a starter, that's a whole different conversation. But I think Spencer Howard, as the professional major league pitcher, who is, in my opinion, a good professional major league pitcher, I think he'll come around.
Yeah, because I just think it's naive. I just think it's naive to think Hale and or Velasquez, one of those two, will carry throughout the whole season a successful bullpen season. So I feel like Howard's going to have to sub in for one of those guys eventually.
Yeah, and I don't think that's anyone's expectation is that, Hale or Velasquez are going to make it through a whole season. Bullpen injuries happen all the time on the fly.
No, I don't mean injuries-wise. I just mean successful stats-wise.
Oh, true.
Both of those guys
even more so than that. You're absolutely right. There's no way. We'll see Spencer Howard. I'd be shocked if he wasn't here by maybe mid-May at the latest, if that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, he'll be up at some point. I don't think it'll be that early. But yeah, he'll be up at some point. So we'll see what this season kind of holds in store for him. So yeah, we've got a lot of high expectations for this team. We'll maybe not sky high, as you guys don't expect them to make the playoffs, but it's Joe Girardi going into his second season, his first full season, his first season not abbreviated by the coronavirus. And I think a lot of people, and myself included, kind of gave him a pass for last season because of the circumstances, because of the coronavirus shortened season and the fact that he had no bullpen to speak of to hold leads for his team. So he really didn't have anywhere to go at the end of games when the team had to lead. And being that it's going to be a full season, they have a visibly improved bullpen. And, the things that were going against him last season aren't quite going against him this year. And Borek, I'll start with you. Is this the season that you judge Joe Girardi based off of?
I think it's the one you should judge him off of, and not if you judge him off of last year just because of the circumstances like you brought up. I feel like this year, like I said, they're going to be, I agree with Biscuit, around 500. I don't know if he said his place, but about a third place team in that marker if they do that. We're a couple games over. So I feel like if they show improvements in guys you want to see have success in Bohm, Reese, the top three in the pitching staff, and the guys you picked up in Alvarado, Kinsler, who Harper recruited to the team too, who he likes as a veteran, Nearest, who added a pitch. If you see all these guys do well, that means Cotham, who Girardi brought in as a pitching coach, was a good decision by him, and he's making good decisions out of the bullpen. So that's a double win. So I think this is a year to see what happens because I've really liked what I've seen and heard about Cotham this far in spring training. And I've really liked how it seems like he's helping a lot of these pitchers that made the team. Hales had his best spring of his career, same with Coonrod. So I think we're going in the right direction. But I think you just need to be around 500 or a couple games up, and then I'm good with Girardi if all those guys that we want to see prove it are moving in the right direction. Same with Jojo Romero once he probably eventually gets his call up in the bullpen, as well as Connor Brogdon, who's a youngster you want to see move in the right direction. So if all that happens, I'm perfectly happy with Joe Girardi. I've been happy with everything he said in the preseason thus far. I was pretty happy with him last year. He had a shit bullpen, so what the hell is he supposed to do? This year we can see how he manages a good bullpen if they actually all perform well. And in New York, he did that very good when he had a good bullpen with the Yankees. So I'm pretty excited to see what he can do now, actually having a pretty decently constructed bullpen by Dave Dombrowski.
So yeah, this is I guess a prove it season for Joe Girardi, according to you, correct?
Yeah, it's a prove it season, but I think he definitely is going to do it. I'm confident in him. I think he's going to get the best out of these guys, and he's talked these guys up correctly. He's been the motivational speaker, which is what we thought Gabe would be when he came in, since he is a motivational speaker. But we saw Girardi be able to do that and kind of talk these guys up well. He's really talked up Hazley's swing since coming back. He's talked up how Quinn has to stop striking out, but if he can hit like in the 260s and get on base. So I think he says all the right things. Now it's just about showing it on the field. You have a better bench. You brought in Brad Miller. You have Matt Joyce. So now you just got to show the improvements on the field. And I think next year is when you're really going to start showing wild card hopes and then hitting it in 2022, 23. I think that's more if we show the improvements this year. This year is all about everybody getting better and then guys showing improvements that we want to see as young guys continue to take strides.
Fair enough. Biscuit, what's your take on Girardi? Do you think that this is a prove it year for him?
Well, I think every year for a manager is kind of like a prove it, give it your all. Like you need to work your butt off to get the most out of these guys. And I think Joe Girardi. There's a reason Joe Girardi's where he's at today. He's a well-respected guy in the baseball world. He's clearly a great manager. I think he does fine at the job. I don't want to sit here and say I don't think the role of the manager is important, but I am of the belief that, the talent of the team does more of the talking than what, the manager is able to control at the end of the day. And if you want to go back to last year, I think the two biggest things that Girardi got hammered for was how he used the bullpen going down the stretch. And, I don't think that's fair. His choices were either to turn to the veterans that were acquired or that were already here who were struggling and performing abysmally or, just looked horrid, or you have to turn to rookies who just got caught up and are, making their major league starts, most likely prematurely, who don't have a lick of bullpen experience, and you want them to pitch in a playoff run when you're trying to make the playoffs. I think the man didn't have any bullets to fire his gun off with, especially in the bullpen. And I think, the other thing that he was criticized for a lot, which was starting Quinn over Hazley. Look, I think that's fair. Adam Hazley deserved more. He played well. He deserved more starting time. He deserved more of a shot than what he got. But with that being said, I don't think Adam Hazley's the significant overall improvement over Roman Quinn. I don't think either of them are that good defensively. I think, Hazley might carry a little bit more of a bat and probably has a little bit better bat to ball skill, but it isn't anything I think overwhelming. And I think Girardi just really is enamored with that speed. If Roman can get on base, what he could do with the top of the lineup following, Andrew McCutchen, Hoskins, Harper, with him already on base, they're going to see a lot of fastballs. So I get what he wants to do with Quinn in that spot, but if it isn't working, you need to go a different route. But other than that, I think the lineup that he consistently put out last season was fine. The rotation was fine. Like I said, the only thing I could think of where I criticized Girardi is where he made the decision with Quinn and Hazley, but everything else, especially with the bullpen, I think was out of his hands. So I think, whether this team makes it to the playoff or not, it's really not any indication of who he is as a manager. He's a fine manager. I think it's more of an indication that the team's just not talented enough.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I do tend to agree with that. As you alluded to, the bullpen was a big issue, and it was something that was out of his control last year. And statistically, at least, if you look at it, if they had even an average bullpen, they would have been a playoff team.
Yeah.
So, and
yeah,
their
not the
bullpen
worst in like
was
109 years.
Yeah, historically bad. If they had even an average bullpen, they would have been pushing 40 wins. They probably would have been somewhere in the high 30s in terms of their win total. So, yeah, they would have been significantly above 500. They would have been safely, easily into the playoffs, not even pushing the final day. They would have had a playoff spot locked up probably heading into the final week if it wasn't for that terrible bullpen.
That's true, but I was going to say a big thing pertaining to what Biscuit said about the Roman Quinn and Hazley thing. Girardi this whole spring kind of took shots at our previous hitting coaches, as he should have. But saying guys like Hazley, Quinn, and Kingery and others should be more line drive hitters to gap hitters that hit
look at them
based off of running into them, where that's not what the old regimen was trying to turn them into. So he was talking about how he really likes how, well, not really as much Kingery. He said he still has work to do in the minors, but the other two showed more being able to kind of slap at the ball and have more even plane swings again, and not going to what Dylan told them to do, which was just not necessarily the right thing to do. Or not Dylan. Who was our hitting coach with Kapler?
John Maley.
John Maley. John Maley.
Also more commonly known as the Devil.
Yeah, the Devil told them to do with like uppercuts and stuff when they shouldn't be trying to swing uppercut. They should be trying to be straight line. So I think he's been impressed with Hazley. He's also talked about how he's liked his fielding improving. So I think hopefully we see that continuing, since Biscuit referenced fielding. Because we have to remember, in college, this guy was a pitcher and a fielder. So he's still kind of fully learning how to man the outfield and not worry about two things at once. So I think that slowed his progression. If he was just a steady outfielder, you probably would see him better already. But I feel like he'll be starting as the potential starter. If Moniak does good in the minors, then you probably have two guys come in. Because unfortunately for Quinn, it's just inevitable. He'll probably be banged up eventually. So we'll have to see Moniak come up and see what he can do. And I think from his spring training, as long as that's after he gets a little bit of work, like Biscuit said, in the minors, I'm confident he can at least platoon. So I think seeing him in spring, that was huge to see that he can at least platoon when he comes up from it.
Real quick, just on John Maley, I think I was the happiest person on the planet when he was fired. I was even happier when he was fired than I was when Kapler was fired, which kind of says a lot. Not exactly the most memorable. Well, maybe he is memorable, but in a bad way. The Phillies hitting coach. So, yeah, they haven't had the greatest track record of success with hitting coaches over the years. So, I do agree with Joe Girardi that, yeah, these guys, especially guys like Adam Hazley, they need to be more of line drive hitters, because that's what they're good at, and that's what'll bring out the most success in them. It'll utilize their skills to the greatest degree, and I'm looking forward to. I'm sorry.
Same with Segura too, who all of a sudden was uppercutting with the old regimen. You saw him in spring kind of go back to his old swing. Hopefully that remains the same, because then hopefully we can get the best out of Gene. So
yeah, if he can go back to being a gap hitter, being the hitter that we saw for the first month or two of the 2019 season, that would be great if he can do that. But going back to Hazley, though, you guys talk about his defense, and I actually think that if you just give him enough time out there, he'll be an above-average center fielder. We saw flashes of it when he had his brief stint up in 2019. He had that great home run robbery. I think it was out in Cincinnati, I believe. And I thought a lot of what he did on the defensive side of things was pretty impressive that year. And he took a step back last season. He had some misplays out in center field. He took some bad routes to balls. And I think that kind of plagued him a little bit. And I just think it's an issue of getting him consistent playing time out there in center field. And I think that if they can do that, then he'll get accustomed to it pretty quickly, and he'll prove to be an above-average defender out there. I mean, look at Bryce Harper. When he came to Philly, everybody said that he was a below-average defensive right fielder, and he's been excellent out there. I think he's been one of the better defensive right fielders in all of baseball in his short amount of time here. And I think that just given some time out in center field, I think Adam Hazley, you could probably say the same thing about him, that he'll develop into a top-end center fielder.
Well, I'm pretty sure he was a Gold Glove finalist, Harper, in 2019. So you're absolutely right. And I think that narrative was a big in heading through the 2018 season and into that offseason, because I think players, he probably didn't want to go as hard in the outfield just to try to keep himself healthy in the walk year. So he probably was taking a little bit more easy, probably not diving as much. Got to land that $330 million contract somehow. Got to take care of your body, right?
And get that payday.
And you're right. And you're right about Hazley. He really did look like he could be a competent, everyday major league center fielder in 2019 when he came up. He had that really good play in center field where he robbed a home run that one time. I forget which team it was against. I think the Nationals.
Cincinnati.
I think it was Was it Cincinnati?
I think it was Cincinnati. Yep.
Since it was. I know
one of those two red teams.
I know it's one of those teams because I remember it was either Victor Robles or someone on the Reds. But he looked worse in 2020 though. Like it looks like he just took a major step back. He looked slower, and like you said, bad routes. He didn't have good jumps on anything. So I'm interested to see what he looks like in the outfield this season. Hopefully it's a lot better, but like I was going back to my point with Girardi, I just don't think you're getting much out of center field right now. I think that position, the next cornerstone player there is either Mickey Moniak, or that player's not in your organization at this time.
Yeah, and let's be honest, in terms of center field, he's got a leg up defensively on Roman Quinn, because you can take bad routes to the ball in center field and still be a step above the horrendous routes that Roman Quinn tends to take.
And only tends to make up because he's faster than lightning, and that's the only reason to catch the ball. So, yeah.
Exactly.
I agree with you, Rob. I think Hazley, I feel like cornerstone's not necessarily the word. I agree with you, Biscuit. I don't feel like Moniak would necessarily be a cornerstone either, because he'll be
That's fair.
Either of them. Yeah.
I'm just saying more like the next guy who actually spends, more than just like
I feel
a third
like
of a season Hazley manning the position.
Yeah. I feel like, to me, Hazley could do that, because I feel like at the bare minimum, he can be that good contact gaps hitter that can basically be a guy like Ender Inciarte for 5 seasons that you let go, who then trailed off after a couple injuries, obviously, in his career. But if he could just be that guy of what Ender Inciarte was for, say, 4 or 5 seasons, and you also have Moniak and you have both of them, you have depth in your outfield. If Kutch goes, you would probably want to sign somebody else, but it gives you more options. So I'm hoping both of them pan out, because I want to have, obviously, for our team as much options as possible. And I think it's quite possible from what we've seen that they could both pan out, as long as 2020 is a mirage where a lot of guys all of a sudden sucked at fielding out of the blue in 2020, where hopefully that goes away this season, where in 2019 they were much better.
Right. Exactly. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Anything you want to throw in before we wrap this episode up here?
How about just go Phillies, man? Go Phillies, guys. Rob and I were talking before we got going, and we were just talking about the sheer joy of having baseball back on TV, going home and just knowing you always have a Phillies game to throw on. I would love a playoff run this season. I would be so hyped. It's long overdue. Like I said, I do think there's an outside chance they get in, but it'll just be nice to have the Phillies back on, and I can't wait till 3:05 on Thursday.
3:05 cannot get here quick enough.
Amen.
Borek, what about you? Anything you want to add on?
Other than, like I said, my closing points just everybody. I just want to see the improvements from the young guys this year and the guys that get caught up in the Howard Moniak of the world, whatever relievers and JoJo Romero or whoever we don't expect right now that emerges. I want to see improvements, and then that's when I'll be happy. I think Girardi's going to have a good year. I think the team will have a good year. I think something we left out in order to get to the playoffs is Nola's going to have to go back to being 19 Nola and not 2020 Nola also, which was still a good pitcher, but just not Aaron Nola. So I think that's a big key.
Just to clarify, we need him to be mid-season 2019 Nola, not September 2019 Nola.
Well, no. Yeah, when shit hit the fan for everybody on the team and they forgot what the hell the word baseball meant in their vocabulary. But yeah, we need Nola to be that mid-season 19, and we need Wheeler to keep doing his thing. But I think Nola be having a good top 7, I would say, in the Cy Young season would be pivotal for making the playoffs as well as a closing point.
Yeah, I certainly do agree with that. And my final thought is, come 3:05 on Thursday, you're going to need 2 things. The first one is obvious. You're going to need the Phillies on your TV set. The second thing, you're going to need food to eat during the game. So the place to go for that is Just Food. You can reach them by phone at 215-794-3663. It's 215-794-FOOD. Their owner, Asian Rob, a great friend of the Always Next to Your podcast network. They have such an excellent selection of food there. Everything you could possibly think of, they have it, and they have the best version of it. Their food tastes amazing. They're located in Buckingham Green in Buckingham, Pennsylvania. Once again, that is Just Food, 215-794-3663. It's 215-794-FOOD. We thank you for listening to this episode of the Chasing the Pennant podcast. We'll be back with another one shortly.
I used to be revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such eager my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.